Before I start this video, did you guys ever read Kurt Vonnegut? Do you? Breakfast of Champions. Now, I wanted to make this video because I know people have questions on it and they're always kind of confused when I talk about it. Like if I were to have, like, let's say, like back in the day, and I had control over the Canon, right? Well, in modern times, I tell people read the Nicene Creed first. Go through the Councils and the Creeds first, and then go back to Scripture. But if I had to make up my own, let's say, canon, not exactly canon, codex, this is how I would do it. I wouldn't actually just have it in two parts, Old and New Testament. Oh, no. So this is Yusuf's canon. Right? Now you wouldn't start with this, but I would have, obviously I have Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and I might have them divided up into document or hypothesis, which I want to ask the Judaizer 2000 what he thinks of that. Joshua would be wiped out, or at least not initially there. So it would be the Pentateuch, Judges, and possibly Ruth through Kings, and that would be history. That'd be seen as a history, not infallible, not these guys were good, but that would be seen as a history. And of the minor prophets would be Amos, Jonah, Obadiah, and Joel. And the other minor prophets would be Antilegomena. They'd be encouraged to be read. These would be the important ones. I'd have Job, but again, must be taught correctly. Baruch, Isaiah, Jeremiah is needed, as is Isaiah. Ezekiel is needed, and unfortunately so is Daniel, although that was a hard one, so I don't know what to go back about that one. And then with the New Testament, which you would start with, you would have you'd have Antilegomena before the New Testament, which would be Sirach, Judith, Tobit, and Manasseh. And Manasseh, I think, would be part of some of the Psalms that would be kept. I wouldn't keep all the Psalms. There would be a few Proverbs that would be kept. And you'd start out with reading the Maccabees. I don't know if it should just be first Maccabees, first, second Maccabees, or first, second, third Maccabees, but definitely first Maccabees. Wisdom would be probably the first book of the New Testament. Then Mark, then John, then Luke, then Acts, then Paul. Haven't decided on which ones yet. Then James, then First John, then the Didache, but the Didache would also be read first. And after the Didache, you'd have the authentic letters of Ignatius of Antioch. And the Antilegomena afterwards would be the Apocalypse of John, which would be straddling the Antilegomena and the New Testament, which includes the Didache and Ignatius of Antioch. Barnabas, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, Shepard, Hermas, Jude, Hebrews, the Protoevangelium of James, and Mathew. And the Protoevangelium and Mathew should probably be blended together. No Esther. Under no circumstances would Esther make it in. And actually it almost didn't. I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that I believe even 39th Paschal letter of Athanasius of Alexandria in 367 AD. I can't remember whether it didn't have Esther or it was the first list that incorporated Esther into the Old Testament, because not even the Jews wanted Esther. The Jews made the big deal because it didn't have the Tetragrammaton in it, and it was seen as a space filler, and it was seen as kind of something that everybody knew was a myth, that was just a reason why Purim gets celebrated. Now, I believe that there's an accurate story behind Esther, because I see no morality in it. I think it's a wicked. I think Esther's a bitch, and if I have a daughter, I'm going to name her Vashti, because I think Vashti got the shaft. Well, actually, she didn't get the shaft, and Esther wound up getting the shaft. If you're crude enough to understand what I meant by that. But that would be my compilation of books, and that's why I don't like the kind of closed canon that we have. And even Athanasius of Alexandria, and I know this for a fact, he included wisdom, and actually many of the early Christian writers included wisdom. And this is when they were talking about the New Testament. This is what was going to go into the Old Testament. Why? Because they already had the Septuagint. They already had a huge work of what was to be the Old Testament. But Hebrews, Jude, 1st, 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd John. I don't even think I wrote 1st, 2nd John down. No, I didn't, but we'll throw that in too. So the Antilegomena would be, the Apocalypse of John would straddle it. But there would be Barnabas, 1st Peter, 2nd Peter, 2nd, 3rd John, Shepard, Hermas, Protoevangelium of James, Gospel of Mathew, which would get mixed with the Protoevangelium of James, and Hebrews. And in the actual New Testament, it would start out with Maccabees, then Wisdom, then Mark, then John, then Luke, then Acts, then Paul, and possibly not all of Paul, then James, then 1st John, then the Didache, then at least 3 of the works of Ignatius of Antioch. Actually, this was years and years ago, I actually was putting together my own, I was copying them off of, I was printing them off, and I had a 3-hole punch, and I was going to put together my own New Testament, because, again, I don't know why no Protestant came to this conclusion, but wait, if you don't trust the Catholic Church, and again, there's a lot of people that never heard of these Orthodox churches, said, why don't we just get our own New Testament, which they thought was deplorable. But Ezekiel you'll need, Jonah, because he's a jerk. Jonah and Job need to be taught correctly. So taught incorrectly, I don't know how people could teach them incorrectly, but people get some weird ideas with that. Joel is needed because of the events that happen in Acts So you're going to need that as a reference point. But you would have 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of main sources, and then they'd be surrounded by not Antilegomena, but lesser writings. And the lesser writings would be some of the stuff that we now have in the Western New Testament codice and the Western Old Testament. So would I ever get in trouble with that? No. I wouldn't tempt fate and try to do that, because it'd piss off a lot of people, a lot of my Orthodox brethren. But it wouldn't change the creed one bit. That's the most important thing. Alright, so I just want to answer that question for people. And then I think I'm going to ask the Judaizer 2000 a few questions, because he didn't know who Cerinthus was, which is quite shocking for somebody who's calling himself the Judaizer. I mean, isn't it?